Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling, Chapter 14, Snape's Grudge. No one in Gryffindor Tower slept that night. They knew that the castle was being searched again, and the whole house stayed awake in the common room, waiting to hear whether Black had been caught. Professor McGonagall came back at dawn to tell them that he had again escaped. Everywhere they were next day, they saw signs of tighter security. Professor Flitwick could be seen teaching the front doors to recognize a large picture of Sirius Black. Filch was suddenly bustling up and down the corridors, boarding up everything from tiny cracks in the walls to mouse holes. Sir Cadogan had been sacked. His portrait had been taken back to its lonely landing on the 7th floor, and the fat lady was back. She had been expertly resorted, but was still extremely nervous, and had only agreed to return to her job on condition that she was given extra protection. A bunch of surly security trolls had been hired to guard her. They paced the corridor in a menacing group, talking in grunts and comparing the size of their clubs. Harry couldn't help noticing that the statue of the one-eyed witch on the 3rd floor remained unguarded and unblocked. It seemed that Fred and George had been right in thinking that they, and now Harry, Ron, and Hermione, were the only ones who knew about the hidden passageway within it. "Do you reckon we should tell someone?" Harry asked Ron. "We know he's not coming in through Honeydukes," said Ron dismissively. "We'd have heard if the shop had been broken into." Harry was glad Ron took this view. If the one-eyed witch was boarded up too, she would never be able to go into Hogsmeade again. Ron had become an instant celebrity. For the first time in his life, people were paying more attention to him than to Harry, and it was clear that Ron was rather enjoying the experience. Though still severely shaken by the night's events, he was happy to tell anyone who asked what had happened, with a wealth of detail. "I was asleep and I heard this ripping noise, and I thought it was in my dream, you know. But then there was this draught. I woke up and one side of the hangings on my bed had been pulled down. I rolled over and I saw him standing over me, like a skeleton with loads of filthy hair, holding his great long knife. He looked at me and I looked at him, and then I yelled, and then he scarpered." "Why though?" Ron added to Harry as the room of second-year's girls who had been listening to his chilling tale departed. "Why did he scarper?" Harry had been wondering the same thing. Why had Black, having got the wrong bed, not silenced Ron and proceeded to Harry? Black had proved 12 years ago that he didn't mind murdering innocent people, and this time he had been facing 5 unarmed boys, 4 of whom were asleep. "He must have known he'd have a job getting back out of the castle once you'd yelled at woken people up," said Harry thoughtfully. "He'd have to kill the whole house to get back through the portrait hole. Then he would have met the teachers." Neville was in total disgrace. Professor McGonagall was so furious with him she had banned him from all future Hogsmeade visits, given him a detention and forbidden anyone to give him the password into the tower. Poor Neville was forced to wait outside the common room every night for somebody to let him in, while the security trolls leered unpleasantly at him. None of the punishments, however, came close to matching the one his grandmother had in store for him. 2 days after Black's break-in, she sent Neville the very worst thing a Hogwarts student could receive over breakfast: a howler. The school owl swooped into the great hall carrying the post as usual, and Neville choked as a huge barn owl and landed in front of Harry and Ron. Harry and Ron, who were sitting opposite of him, recognized the latter as a howler at once. Ron had gotten one from his mother the year before. "Run for it, Neville," Ron advised. Neville didn't need telling twice. He seized the envelope and, holding it before him like a bomb, sprinted out of the hall, while the slithering table exploded with laughter at the sight of him. They heard the howler go off in the entrance hall. They heard the howler and Neville's grandmother's voice, magically magnified to 100 times its usual volume, shrieking about how he had brought the shame on the whole family. Harry was too busy feeling sorry to Neville to have noticed immediately that he had a letter too. Hedwig got his attention by nipping him sharply on the wrist. "Ouch! Oh, thanks, Hedwig." Harry tore open the envelope where Hedwig helped herself to some of Neville's cornflakes. The note inside said, "Dear Harry and Ron, how about having tea with me this evening around 6? I'll come and collect you from the castle. Wait for me in the entrance hall. You're not allowed on your own. Cheers, Hagrid." "He probably wants to hear all about Black," said Ron. So at 6 o'clock that evening, Harry and Ron left Gryffindor Tower, passed the security trolls at a run, and headed down to the entrance hall. Hagrid was already waiting for them. "All right, Hagrid," said Ron. "Suppose you want to hear about Saturday night, do you?" "I've already heard all about it," said Hagrid, opening the front doors and leading him outside. "Oh," said Ron, looking slightly put out. The first thing they saw on entering Hagrid's cabin was Buckbeak, who was stretched out on top of Hagrid's patchwork quilt, his enormous wings folded tight to his body, enjoying a large plate of dead ferrets. Averting his eyes from this unpleasant sight, Harry saw a gigantic hairy brown suit and very horrible yellow and orange tie hanging from the top of Hagrid's wardrobe door. "What are they for, Hagrid?" said Harry. "Buckbeak's case against the committee for the disposal of dangerous creatures," said Hagrid. "This Friday, him and me will be going down to London together. I've booked 2 beds on the night bus." Harry felt a nasty pang of guilt. He had completely forgotten that Buckbeak's trial was so near, and judging by the uneasy look on Ron's face, he had too. They had also forgotten their promise about helping him prepare Buckbeak's defense. The arrival of the firebolt had driven it clean out of their minds. Hagrid poured them tea and offered them a plate of Bath buns, but they knew better than to accept. They had too much experience of Hagrid's cooking. "I've got something to discuss with you two," said Hagrid, sitting himself between them and looking uncharacteristically serious. "What?" said Harry. "Hermione," said Hagrid. "What about her?" said Ron. "She's in a high state, and that's what. She's been coming down to visit me a lot since Christmas. Been feeling lonely. Plus, you weren't talking to her because of the firebolt. Now we're not talking about her because of her cat." "Eight scabbers!" Ron interjected angrily. "Because her cat acted like all cats do," Hagrid continued doggedly. "She's cried a fair few times, you know, going through a rough time at the moment. But enough and more than she can chew, if you ask me. All the work she's trying to do. Still found time to help me with Buckbeak's case. Mind, she's found some really good stuff to me. We can't heal stand a good chance now. Hagrid, we should have helped as well. Sorry," Harry began awkwardly. "I'm not blaming you," said Hagrid, waving Harry's apology aside. "God knows you had enough to be getting on with. I've seen him practicing Quidditch every hour of the day and night. But I gotta tell you, I thought you two value your friend more than broomsticks and rats. That's all." Harry and Ron exchanged uncomfortable looks. Really upset she was when Black nearly stabbed you, Ron. "She's got her heart in the right place, Hermione has, and you two not talking to her. If she'd just get rid of that cat, it'd speak to her again," Ron said angrily. "But she's still sticking up for it. It's a maniac, and she won't hear a word against it." "Ah, well, people can be stupid about their pets," said Hagrid wisely. Behind him, Buckbeak spat a few ferret bones onto Hagrid's pillow. They spent the rest of their visits discussing the Gryffindor's improved chances for the Quidditch Cup. At 9 o'clock, Hagrid walked them back up to the castle. A large group of people was bunched around the notice board when they returned to their common room. "Hogsmeade next weekend," said Ron, craning over their heads to read the notice. "What do you reckon?" he added quietly to Harry as they went to sit down. "Well, Filch hasn't done anything about the passage in Honeydukes," Harry said even more quietly. "Harry," said a voice right in his right ear. Harry stared and looked around at Hermione, who was sitting at the table right behind them, and clearing a space in the wall of books that had been hiding her. "Harry, if you go into Hogsmeade again, I'll tell Professor McGonagall about that map," said Hermione. "Can you hear someone talking, Harry?" growled Ron, not looking at Hermione. "Ron, how can you let him go with you? After that serious Black nearly did to you. I mean it. I'll tell—" "So now you're trying to get Harry expelled," said Ron furiously. "Haven't you done enough damage this year?" Hermione opened her mouth to respond, but with a soft hiss, Crookshanks slept onto her lap. Hermione took one frightened look, and the expression of Ron's face gathered Crookshanks up and hurried away towards the girls' dormitories. "So how about it?" said Ron to Harry as though there had been no interruption. "Come on, last time I went you didn't see anything. You haven't even been inside Zonko's yet." Harry looked around to check that Hermione was well out of earshot. "Okay," he said, "but I'm taking the invisibility cloak this time." On Saturday morning, Harry packed his invisibility cloak in his bag, slipped the Marauders map into his pocket, and went down for breakfast with everyone else. Hermione kept shooting suspicious looks down at the table at him, but he avoided her eye, and was careful to let her see him walking up the marble staircase in the entrance hall as everybody else proceeded to go to the front doors. "Bye," Harry called to Ron. "See you when you get back." Ron grinned and winked. Harry hurried up to the third floor, slipping the Marauders map out of his pocket as he went. Crouching behind the one-eyed witch, he smoothed it out. A tiny dot was moving in his direction. Harry squinted at it. The minuscule writing next to it read, "Neville Longbottom." Harry quickly pulled out his wand, muttered "Descendium," and shoved his back into the statue. But before he could climb in himself, Neville came around the corner. "Harry, I forgot you weren't going to Hogsmeade either." "Hi, Neville," said Harry, moving swiftly away from the statue and pushing the map back into his pocket. "What are you up to?" "Nothing," shrugged Neville. "On a game of exploding snap?" Not now. I was going to go to the library and do what vampires say for Lupin." "I'll come with you," said Neville brightly. "I haven't done it either." Hang on. Yeah, I forgot. I finished it last night." "Brilliant! You can help me," said Neville, his round face anxious. "I don't understand that thing about garlic at all. Do you have to eat it, or—" Neville broke off with a small gasp, looking over Harry's shoulder. It was Snape. Neville took a quick step behind Harry. "And what are you two doing here?" said Snape, coming to a halt and looking from one to another. "An odd place to meet." To Harry's immersed disquiet, Snape's black eyes flicked to the doorways on either side of them, and then to the one-eyed witch. "We're not meeting here," said Harry. "We just met here." "Indeed," said Snape. "You have a habit of turning up in unexpected places, Potter, and you are rarely there for no reason. I suggest the pair of you return to Gryffindor Tower, where you belong." Harry and Neville set off without another word. As they turned the corner, Harry looked back. Snape was running one of his hands over the one-eyed witch's head, examining it closely. Harry managed to shake Neville off at the fat lady by telling him the password, then pretending he'd left his vampire essay in the library and doubling back. Once off sight of the security trolls, he pulled out the map again and held it close to his nose. The third floor's corridor seemed to be deserted. Harry scanned the map carefully and saw, with a leap of relief, that the tiny dot labeled Severus Snape was now back in his office. He sprinted back to the one-eyed witch, opened her hump, heaved himself inside, and slid down to meet his back at the bottom of the stone chute. He wiped the murderer's map blank again, then set off at a run. Harry, completely hidden beneath the invisibility cloak, emerged into the sunlight outside Honeydukes and prodded Ron in the back. "It's me," he murmured. "What kept you?" Ron hissed. Snape was hanging around. They set off the high street. "Where are you?" Ron kept muttering out of the corner of his mouth. "Are you still there? This feels weird." They went to the post office. Ron pretended to be checking the price of an owl to build in Egypt so that Harry could have a good look around. The owls sat hooting slowly down at him, at least 300 of them, from grey greys right down to tiny little scoop owls, local believers only, which were so small they could have sat in the palm of Harry's hand. When they visited Zonko's, which was so packed with students, Harry had to exercise great care not to tread on anyone and cause a panic. There were jokes and tricks to fulfill even Fred and George's wildest dreams. Harry gave Ron whispered orders and passed him some of gold from under the cloak. They left Zonko's with their money bags, considerably lighter than they had been on entering, but their pockets bubbling with dung lumps, Hecus sweets, frog spawn soaps, and nose-biting teacup puppies. The day was fine and breezy, and neither of them felt like staying indoors, so they walked past their 3 broomsticks and climbed a slope to visit the Shrieking Shack, the most haunted dwelling in Britain. It stood a little way above the rest of the village, and even in daylight was slightly creepy, with its border windows and dank overgrown gardens. "Even the Hogwarts ghosts avoid it," said Ron as they leaned over the fence, looking up at it. "I asked nearly headless Nick. He says he'd seen and heard a very rough crowd live here. No one can get in. Fred and George tried, obviously, but all the entrances are sealed shut." Harry, feeling hot from their climb, was just considering taking off the cloak for a few minutes when they heard voices nearby. Someone was climbing towards the house from the other side of the hill. Moments later, Malfoy had appeared, followed closely by Crabbe and Goyle. Malfoy was speaking. Should have known for father any time now. We had to go to Hewing to tell him about my arm. How about I couldn't use it for 3 months? Crab and Goyle sniggered. I really wish I could hear that great Harry Morton tried to defend himself. There's no arm in, I'm honest. The hippogriff's as good as dead. Malfoy suddenly caught the sight of Ron. His face split in a malevolent grin. What are you doing, Weasley? Malfoy looked up at the crumbling house behind Ron. Suppose you'd love to live here, wouldn't you, Weasley? Dreaming about having your own bedroom. I heard your family all sleep in one room. Is that true? Harry seized the back of Ron's robes to stop him from leaning on Malfoy. Leave it to me, he hissed in Ron's ear. The opportunity was too perfect to miss. Harry crept silently around behind Malfoy. Crab and Goyle bent down and scooped a large handful of mud off the path. We were just discussing your friend Hagrid, Malfoy said to Ron, just trying to imagine what he's saying to the comedy for the disposal of dangerous creatures. Do you think he'll cry when they cut off his hippogriffs? Splat! Malfoy's head jerked forward as the mud hit him. His silver-brown hand was suddenly dripping in muck. What the? Ron had to hold onto the fence to keep himself standing. He was laughing so hard. What was that? Who did that? Malfoy, Crab, and Goyle spun stupidly on the spot, staring wildly around, Malfoy trying to wipe his hair clean. Very haunted up here, isn't it? Said Ron, with the air of one commenting on the weather.